Hey, it's Jordan with TYT and TYT Politics. I am here at Cuyahoga, Cuyahoga Community College here in the great city of Cleveland, and I'm here with the champion of Cleveland. I don't buy LeBron James. It's you, Nina Turner. She was a former state senator here. If you've been following the presidential election, particularly the progressive uprising from Bernie Sanders movement, she was one of his, I'd say, top surrogates, top supporters, and just a breath of fresh air if you were awoken to some of the messages that Bernie pushed and you pushed. For those of you that don't know, this is part of what we're doing this week. We're doing a little cheesy, but hell, why not? Disappearing middle class. So hashtag disappearing middle class. We've done about 6 or 7 interviews between Pennsylvania, Ohio. After this, we're going to Detroit. Then we're headed to Chicago, then Wisconsin, and unless we go to jail, all over the place. So if you have your own story, tweet it now or on Facebook using that hashtag. But I wanted to talk to you because we met months ago leading up to the Ohio primary. And I kind of, talking to people the last few days, there's a real disconnect because you read stories about, household income is up 5.2% in 2015, and the economy is rebounding. And then I go to these states in Pennsylvania, Ohio. I mean, I've seen it all over the country, and you meet people who are just out of hope. I met someone yesterday who's literally living off $140 a week, with 2 kids and a disabled husband, and barely any disability money. Talk about, for those that don't know, kind of your story before getting into politics.
Well, the struggle is real. Hashtag that too, along with the disappearing middle class. I came from a poor family, and I don't have to, poverty is real. People suffer every single day, and people try. My mom came from a solidly middle class household and was an only child, but her life was not perfect. And my parents got married very young. They got married as teenagers, and it didn't work out. So I grew up the majority of my life in a single mother household. So I get it, when single mothers and single dads and just poor families in general are really working hard to try to make things happen. And my mother worked awfully hard. My mother, Jordan, died at the age of 42 years old with her dreams deferred, as Langston Hughes put it. And not only did she die at 42, she died on the system of welfare. She didn't have any life insurance for 7 kids. I'm the oldest of those 7, and she didn't have any money in the bank. So here I am at the age of 22, married. I have a son. My youngest sister is 12, so there's 7 of us. We're all babies. I'm 22, and my mother has nothing. And it wasn't because she didn't try. She was among the working poor, but life is not perfect for lots of folks. And my biggest concern about this election cycle, as with every election cycle, is that we have people running for office who all they really care about is their next office. They don't really understand that they're flesh and blood attached to these policy positions that people are crying out for. My mother never lived to see me graduate from college. I'm a first-generation college graduate. I graduated first from this institution that we're at right now, Cuyahoga Community College. People of color, students of color, primarily African-American and Latino students who attend a community college, they increase their likelihood of going on to get that bachelor's degree. I bear witness to that as I try very hard to become a cycle breaker in all of my turmoil and strife. And my grandmother, that you hear me quote, and most of America will hear me quote my grandmother, she died 4 months after my mom. So when I say life ain't been no crystal stair, again, another reference to Langston Hughes, that shit is real. It's real. And so I graduated from here, and then I matriculated to Cleveland State University, which is right up the street, and I earned my bachelor's and my master's degree. I started a PhD program, and then I got into politics. But then the most important, well, even before that, I got into politics. But for me, the most important thing was when my son, who's a second-generation college graduate, graduated. Because now that shows very clearly what the studies show, that if a parent can go to college and graduate, they increase the likelihood that their children and their children's children will do the same. That I, in fact, was a cycle breaker, but it was hard. So when people see me on TV fighting like hell fighting against the status quo, whether they be Democrat or Republican, I'm doing that from a deep place. And that is why I was so attracted to Senator Bernie Sanders and his mission, because he was saying things that most politicians are too afraid to say. He was talking about the working poor. He was talking about how unaffordable college is. I'm still paying off college debt right now because I didn't have a silver spoon in my mouth. My mother tried. My father and I have a very strong relationship now, but I grew up the majority of my life in a single mother household, watched my mother cry herself to sleep during Christmas because she couldn't afford to buy 7 children the designer stuff. The shit is real. The struggle is real. And so I get it. So I try most often to put myself in the places of the people who are struggling in this country. So yeah, the statistics show that incomes are rising. Yes, we came out of a great recession. Yes, the president led that as well as some other folks as well. But when you talk to everyday people the way that you're doing, you find out that their lives have not really changed. And so it's not enough for us to talk about. We can say that things are getting better. Yes, compared to the Great Recession, things are. But there are still people. If you were already drowning when the Great Recession hit, you're not much above water. So you're still drowning. So what we found, though, in those numbers is that the majority of the people are working 2 or 3 jobs, or they're working longer hours. So their quality of life is not much better, even though we see an increase in income. And income and wealth, 2 different things. Most of the working class in this country, they don't have a whole lot of wealth. So we got to deal with those issues, Jordan, in a very real way. So I want people to know when they see me going ham, it is because of my life experience. And I never did sit back, but I'm all the way woke now. You know, hashtag stay woke. We hashtagging a lot this morning.
I don't want to get into Hillary versus Donald. Let other people do that. But you made a decision kind of before Bernie took off to kind of change horses. And a lot of politicians don't make decisions kind of knowing that it's either political suicide or it's political suicide. Right. So I want to know, what were you seeing that obviously I think it's a courageous move, but what were you seeing not about Hillary versus Bernie, but that made you say, you know what, damn the consequences, I got to go out and fight for this person who's fighting for working people?
Well, I started to juxtaposition my life story to what this man was talking about, and I really dug in deep. I did do things for Ready for Hillary. I was in 2014. I had never made a formal endorsement, even though people, never let the truth get in the way of a good story, and people have a lot of good stories, not a whole lot of truth. What I should have been was thanked for what I voluntarily did. Instead, I got the Hillary crew, coming after me, and folks saw that very clearly, what happened at the convention in Philadelphia, and it hasn't stopped, but that's okay. For me, it was really about the people. So when I thought about my poor mother, who was among the working poor all of her life, who tried very hard, but just, life gets in the way. Everybody doesn't run the race at the same pace. When I thought about being a first-generation college graduate and what having a higher education did for me and allowed me to do for my family and for my son, who became second generation. This man is talking about making colleges and universities, public colleges and universities, tuition free. He's talking about universal health care. My mother had an aneurysm burst in her brain, and she went into a coma for a very short time, and I had to pull the plug on her. I thought about that universal health care. And
how old were you when you had to pull the plug?
I was 22, and my baby sister was 12. 7 kids, and I didn't know how I was going to make it, Jordan. I did not know. I prayed to God, if you give me strength, I will become a cycle breaker. And for my mother's memory, every day, even though she never lived to see me walk across the stage of Cuyahoga Community College or Cleveland State University, she never saw me sworn in, becoming the first councilwoman in Ward 1, which is on the southeast side of Cleveland, serving my community. She never lived to see me sworn in as a state senator. She never lived to see me challenge, again, the establishment, running for Secretary of State in 2014 in the great state of Ohio. And she never lived to see me, be one of the surrogates, premier surrogates, fierce surrogates for Senator Bernie Sanders. Things that African American women don't often get an opportunity to do, but I do believe that she is in heaven saying, "You go, girl." I heard my mother's voice. Jordan, I couldn't sleep at night. I had to make that decision because I wanted to sleep. I wanted to be at peace. And my spirit told me, Senator Bernie Sanders is the true champion. As my husband said to me, he has the same righteous indignation as you have. You got to give this man a chance. Think about it. And that was it. Universal health care. Speaking the words poor, talking about structural and institutional racism in this country, the 5 violences against black and brown people. Saying that the system is rigged, the economy is rigged, that corporations get a chance to have more voice than everyday people, than Miss Johnson or Mrs. Johnson or Jackson down the street. That spoke to me, Jordan. And I said, you know what? If I haven't found something I'm ready to lose for, then I'm not worth my salt as somebody in the political class. And so I decided to go full out, ovaries to the wall, for Senator Bernie Sanders. And that is what I did the entire time, which is why I believe, the other team is so they got venom for a sister. Let's just say that. Yeah.
Ovaries to the wall. That's my new one. I want to ask you not so much about the inside baseball, what happened at the DNC, but what I saw at the DNC was I was out covering protests of millennials, and there were some older people too. And inside, it's almost like an alternate universe, because you got the high dollar donors up in the high, drinking their champagne and all that. You have Hillary supporters, rightly so. She was the nominee and they were celebrating. But it seems like there was a real disconnect between the platitudes on stage about the middle class and what these struggling people out there are. And when you kind of broaden it from the DNC to what I'm seeing all around the country, it seems like if you're in New York, D.C., LA, if you're in media, if you're a politician, you kind of live in a bubble. Right. And you cite statistics with low numbers, and you cite, and because you're doing fairly well, media, journalists makes some money, politicians do well. It's almost like an ignorance. Do you feel like part of the problem is the fact that we don't have a diversity of leadership, whether it's in journalism or politicians?
Absolutely. Diversity of experience matters. And it's not just ethnic diversity, but that's number one. That's what we can see. But it's also diversity of experience as well, and background. We need seasoned folks. We need millennials. We need wealthy folks. And we need working class folks. We need everybody at the table to talk about their experience. But flesh and blood is attached to all of this. And when you are inside the bubble, you tend to forget. And that's why I believe that my experience as a councilwoman really informed me, because I was on the streets with my constituents, that I saw them in grocery stores. I saw them at funerals. So there was no escape, as you will. You right there up close and personal, so you know that every move you make, every decision you make has a consequence. You live in the same community that you represent. You hear, the things that matter to people every single day. A lot of these folks, their first time running and holding office was on the federal level or was on the state level. And I'm not, saying that that's bad, but when you don't touch people, when you don't hear people, when you don't see people on a regular basis and have them tell you their stories while you're not on the campaign trail, when you're just in the grocery store trying to buy some groceries for your family, or you're at the doctor's office, Jordan, I couldn't even go to the doctor's office without my constituents. We got her right here, right now. We don't know why she's here, but this is our time to tell her our concerns, or to share our concerns, our hopes, and our dreams. Yes, too many of these folks are disconnected, and they need to do what you're doing. And I'm not just saying that because you're here, but you got to get out and touch people and allow them to tell you their stories. Yes, it's okay for us to say that things are getting better, but better is not where it's not the ultimate destination. They must keep getting better. And again, people who were doing okay before the Great Recession are still doing okay. But if you were struggling before the Great Recession, you are underwater. You were drowning. And your head is not above that water right now. You are still underwater. And so we have to put these things in context and not be afraid to say, things have gotten better, but they're not great for everybody. And until we get great for the majority of people, we're going to keep working. You can say both, but political speak doesn't allow you to say that, because you're so worried that your opponent is going to use that against you that you're afraid to tell the truth. And the truth the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And what attracted people to Senator Bernie Sanders during that primary is that he was not afraid to speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You know, when you look through American history, and I'm a little young on the years, but 1950s and 60s, strongest economic.
I wasn't born then either, for the record.
She's a beautiful.
I'm a Gen Xer. Yeah.
Beautiful 28-year-old. 50s and 60s, strongest economic times of the last century, strong unions.
Yes.
You had pretty much CEOs that made like maybe 15, 20% times their employee, not 250%. You had very strong regulations. You had higher taxes on the wealthy. It's not rocket science. Government investment. Then in the 1970s, you started seeing loosening of money in politics rules, and then Reagan took a meat cleaver to unions. I could go on, but a lot of people think it's just the Republicans. A lot of neoliberal policies have hurt. I know you're a Democrat, I don't want to get you in trouble, but a lot of neoliberal policies have also aided more extremist Republicans. So when you have, one party that's batshit crazy, yeah, and one party that's just totally in bed with corporations, how do we help the person I just met in Euclid, or the person I met in Mentor, who's living off $140? I know Bernie talked about the political revolution, but if we're keeping it real, it's a little fractured based on what I see, among viewers and just having my ear to the ground. How do you really start to change that dynamic?
Well, we got to restore for people, and you're right. I mean, Citizens United just really blew the lid off. And we are living at a time in this country where unless you have lots of wealth or highly connected, you're going to be able to barely run for dog catcher if we are not careful. And so that hashtag we stay woke, that is real. That everyday ordinary people have to seize this moment back. And I keep Senator Sanders, there's so many examples and how he ran his campaign that I think those clues are there in terms of what we can do. Small dollar donations, they're real. Here we have a man, a socialist Democrat from Vermont, 74 years old. And I got to say this, Jordan, if somebody if I wake up at the age of 74 and decide I'm going to run for president, baby, I'm doing it. Because that is, other than just showing people a different way in terms of the economy and what's going wrong, he also showed from a perspective that it's never, as long as you are breathing, as long as you are up, long as you can stand up, baby, you can make a difference in this world. I met a lady who was 80-something years old. During about 3 weeks ago, I was with the Working Families Party. I received one of their champion awards, imagine that. And I got a chance to see Senator Sanders, which was a beautiful thing. But a lady pulled me to the side, I think she said she was 85 years old. She ran for office for the very first time because of Senator Bernie Sanders. I use those as examples is because the senator, he struck the match. He lit the flame, but it's our job to keep it going. And so if we don't like the types of people who are in office right now, we have to unify and run ourselves. We got to run more progressives, not just for the highest office in the land, but we need progressives on school boards. We need progressives in legislatures across this country. We need progressives on city councils. We need progressive mayors, governors, statewide office holders. We the people, and sometimes it doesn't feel like that because money has taken over on both parties. We have corporatist Democrats. That's real. And so I come from the Shirley Chisholm, Bernie Sanders wing of the Democratic Party. I done created my own wing, Jordan. That's just how I got to roll. But we really do need people in that political class who actually care about the people, really care about the people. When I say care, I mean care enough that you're going to put something on the line, that you are willing to challenge the system, that you are willing to take a loss, a political loss if you have to, for standing up for the right thing. But the people must know this. Titles are good, but purpose is better. And when I talk about purpose, we are all equal, and that there are more we the people than there are folks in the corporatist elected class. And so we got to stand up. We have to put some skin in the game. I just had that conversation with the Amalgamated Transit Union in Toronto because people are discouraged. You can see it. And I wasn't about to go there to sell them a bill of goods, but what I did say to them is that there has to be consequences now. We can no longer just elect people and let them get away scot-free because they're going to come and tell you what you want to hear while they're running, but you got to scorecard them. What are the things that are important to you? How far has this person advanced? Are they making their promises real? And if they're not making it real, in 4 years, you got to tell them, I see you. And I don't care what party they hail from. My three C's. Consciousness. Stay woke. Commitment. This is a distance race. This is not a sprint. We're going to get some things in the short term and other things in the long term. And then consequences. Sometimes people we love and support, we got to let them go. If they are not standing up for the people, they got to go.